Hello learners and listeners, welcome to this program. Today's topic is gender analysis. This topic is part of the master's program, Gender and Development Studies. Myself Dr. G. Uma. Today's session we are going to learn gender analysis. Specifically, we will define what is gender analysis. Second one is that there are various concepts that is related to gender analysis. While explaining the various concepts, I would like to explain those concepts by giving in sector-specific examples. For example, how do we do gender analysis in agriculture? There are various sectors. We could able to apply gender analysis as a methodology using various methods to know the status of male, female, and other genders, as well as even, for example, if you take education as an example, whether a female child, do they have an access to educational institutions? Even if they have an access to educational institutions, whether they could able to complete their entire school education or not. If they are not able to complete school education, what is the reasons for discontinuing the school education? All those could be able to derive, find out by applying gender analysis as a methodology. Thus, in this session, we are going to learn various concepts related to gender analysis by using in sector-specific examples, as well as I would like to explain few methods used to collect the data using gender analysis as a methodology. So let us start defining what is gender analysis. It is a tool. Gender analysis is a tool as part of the gender and development framework to better understand the realities of the women and men, girls and boys whose lives are impacted by planned development. As we all know, gender and development studies, we used to analyze various policies and programs, and these policies and programs, how it impacted on male, female, as well as girls and boys, whether the specific policies have a positive impact in the lives of the certain sections of the population, or it might have a negative impact. For example, if the particular policy doesn't bring intended results among certain sections of the population, how do we improve that particular policy for getting better results? Second significant point we need to understand while defining gender analysis is that it is about understanding culture expressed in the construction of gender identities and inequalities, and what that means to practical terms. For example, then gender analysis basically it aims to uncover the dynamics of gender differences across variety of issues. These include, for example, social realities, how male and female are defined in a given context, and what type of roles they are carrying out in the specific society. What are the duties they are having? Is this due to the socialization process, or whether the particular societies imposing certain roles on male or certain roles on females? If they impose certain roles on certain sections of the population, whether because of that particular roles, duties and responsibilities, are they not treated on par with the male members, or how it really impacted in the lives of the women? That we could able to understand by using gender analysis as a tool, or gender analysis as a methodology to collect the data. Then activities like gender division of labor. What type of productive activities the male, female, they perform in the given in the particular society, as well as what type of reproductive work within the household and community. like for example, productive, reproductive and community managing and community politics role. Apart from carrying out certain kinds of productive, reproductive roles by the male and female, both male and female, they may expect to perform certain kinds of political roles in the community. That is the another important aspects we could able to collect by using gender analysis as a methodology. That is the another important thing is related to access to control over resources, whether male or female members, whether do they have an access to resources. For example, land as a significant resources. Certainly women, they may, if you take rural areas, the women, they may able to work in the agriculture field, but they may not be able to take decisions like what type of crop they would like to grow in a particular season, whether it's a food crops or cash crops. Even if they want to sell off certain land for their own benefits, they may not be able to take a decision. So sometimes female members in the society, they may have an access to certain kinds of resources, but they may not have a control over that particular resources. So using gender analysis as a methodology, we could able to understand whether particular sections of the population, specifically women, do they have an access and control over resources. Next significant issues we could able to know is that institutions of decision making, networks of power and authority, and what type of needs female they should have, what type of needs male they should have, then distinct needs of men, women, as well as by using gender analysis as a methodology, we could able to know the strategic and practical gender needs of the male, female and other genders in the society. Like, okay, now we could able to understand what is gender. Gender analysis is a tool as well as it's a methodology to know what type of work or work the male they perform, the female perform in the society, and whether do they have an access and control over their resources. So all both personal and community areas, we could able to collect all those details by using gender analysis as a particular tool. By collecting those datas, we could able to formulate meaningful policies to bring changes in the life of the women. That is the first thing we need to understand. Then how do we do gender analysis? That is the process of gender analysis. Gender analysis is basically, it's a process in which the inequalities and discriminations identified in any given setup by using various participatory tools and research methods. It is more analyzing the relationship of men and women in terms of, as I have already explained, in terms of access to resources and also obtaining better standard of life, education, empowerment, etc. Gender analysis is predominantly being used for development policy making process, project planning, implementation and evaluation. And when we talk about gender analysis, it has its own methods to implement gender analysis in the field. The origin of subordination of women to men in a history is based on female reproductivity of birth, survival based on fulfillment of basic needs like food, shelter, etc. Basically, in any society, men are kept in a more advantageous position and considered superior human being. In this way, entire societies, we construct the entire society in an unequal platform which makes women in many ways socially excluded. Thus, gender analysis is a significant methodology to know the existing gender construction in the society. Okay, how do we do gender analysis? What are the components of gender analysis? That we need to understand that before we get into components of gender analysis, you all must be wondering whether this gender analysis as a tool can be applied at various levels. For example, if it's in a national level, we could use this gender analysis as a tool to frame the policies, as well as we can use gender analysis as a tool to reduce poverty. Macro policies on public expenditure can be done by using gender analysis as a tool. How do we do? Then, as part of the gender analysis, we can use gender budgeting as another tool to know the expenditure. Like when we implement gender budgeting, what we can do is that we could able to say that first we need to collect the data. That is, we need to collect the gender disaggregated data and informations using various methods. That is the first step. Then assessment of roles and responsibility. Who does what in a given society? That is the division of labor. Third significant points here we need to remember is that access and control. Who has an access and who has a control over resources? Then in this entire process, who has taken decision at the various level? Whether it's a public space or private space, who will take a decision? By using the existing data, we need to examine the collected data from a gender perspective. For example, how do we collect the gender segregated data? If you take I'm giving an example. You take in a particular city, the one X city, where you want to know how many percentage of population are really having a regular employment. How will you know that? Maybe through the formal sector, how many percentage of the population they are working in a formal sector. Within that population, within that particular working population, we are supposed to collect the gender disaggregated data. For example, that around in a 60 or 70% of the population in a particular city are working in a formal sector. Within that 70%, we need to know how many percentage of the female are working in the formal sector and how many percentage of the male working in the formal sector. For example, if there is an 70% of the male population, if they are working in the formal sector, and only 20% of the female population working in the formal sector, then we need to make a specific policy to increase the women's percentage in the formal sector. In this way, gender analysis will help us to formulate necessary policies to address the existing inequities in the society. So you must be all wondering, why do we need to know why do we need to increase the women population in the formal sector? First thing, we need to understand that if you take the formal sector, the employment opportunities are formalized. Then people working in the formal sector, they will get certain social security measures and their employment is ensured. These are the certain benefits they get. If we increase the women percentage in formal sector, certainly the women, they will get the social security measures and they get certain maternity benefits. They will get after the retirement, they will get a retirement benefits. These are the certain benefits people they get in the formal sector. Because of these benefits, so automatically their living conditions will improve. That's why it is important to increase the women's percentage in the formal sector. Second significant point I was mentioning is about the roles and assessing the roles and responsibilities or division of labor. So here, how do we assess roles and responsibilities or with regard to division of labor? Considering men's and women's roles and responsibilities in relation to formal and informal employment, community participation, local community politics, family, and consider where is there greater where is the women's greater participation? That is the first question. What are the reason for this? Why the women are participating more in the private spaces rather than the public spaces? That's the first question. What are the barriers to an equitable division of labor and equal opportunity? Why do women are not getting, or why women are not getting equal opportunities like male members in the society? Where do opportunities, or where will women get an entry points? What different roles do boys and girls play within the household and community? Once you know about the answer, or one could able to, as a researcher, once we could able to collect the data related to the questions I have raised, then accordingly we could able to formulate a policies, or we could try to reconstruct the existing socialization process to improve women's percentage in the formal sector. For example, access and control. Why do we talk about the access and control? Basically, the women, they do contribute in various sectors, whether it's an informal sector in the urban spaces, or agriculture sector in the rural spaces, or women's contribution in the private spaces, that is specifically on reproductive work. Not only bearing the children, the society expect them to rear the children, rear the elders, and they are expected to do the all kinds of work related to private spaces. Here, once you come to know that these are the activities performed by the female members in the private spaces, then we automatically, the questions arise in our mind. What is the reason the male are not performing all these roles in the private spaces? Then we come to the answer that it is due to the existing socialization process. Certainly, we need to bring certain changes in the existing socialization process to bring equity in the private spaces. In this way, the gender analysis as a tool will help us to know will help us to collect the gender sex disaggregated data and assessment of roles and responsibilities or division of labor, consideration of access and control over resources, and we could able to understand the examination of decision making pattern, as well as we could able to know the gender roles and relationship. Based on that, at the national level, one could able to make public policies or macro policies to address the concerns of the both male and female. Second one is that subnational level, how do we use gender analysis as a tool to improve women's status and position in the society? Certainly, after collecting these kinds of, after collecting sex disaggregated data at the subnational level, we could make these data as part of the district development plans, policies, strategies. Accordingly, in each district, one could able to allocate necessary budgets to address the concerns of the females. We could able to implement whatever legislations and procedures that we make at the national level, that could be implemented in a better manner to address the concerns of the female members in the society. And how do we use this gender analysis as a tool or techniques in the development of programs and projects? That is the third. So it's every level, whether it's a national level, subnational level, or development programs and projects, we can use gender analysis as a tool to know the roles of the male and female, whether do they have an access and control over the resources, once you come to know all these informations, we can use gender analysis as a tool to bring necessary policies for making the society more equitable. For example, development and projects and programs, we could able to community development plans, programs and activities, and whatever the donor programs and policies, one could bring gender sensitivity in implementation, as well as when we identified necessary programs and policies, we can use gender analysis as a tool to identify specific projects and programs. Those programs will be designed according to the gender sensitive manner that will help us to bring transformation in the lives of the women. So how do we make gender analysis as a visible tool at every level? Once we understand the different needs, priorities and capacities, experiences, interests and views of the men, girls and boys, then one could able to know that who has an access to and control over resources, opportunities and power, who does what, why, when, who is likely to benefit or lose from a new initiatives, what is the gender differences in social relations and different patterns and levels of involvement that men, women, girls, boys have in economic, political, social and legal structures, and women's and men's lives are not all the same. Even any society, any given society, there are differences between male and female. These differences emerged due to the existing socialization process, and these differences due to the various factors, they play a significant role as what are the factors like sex, age, ethnicity, race, economic status. These are the few factors I have mentioned. There are various factors play a significant role in bringing the differences in the lives of the male and female. Then there are assumptions that the society expects that the female, they have to perform certain roles and they have to behave in a certain way, and they are supposed to treat in a certain way. Because of these existing assumptions, certainly there are differences between male and female. These differences certainly bringing inequity in the society. So to know all these differences, gender analysis as a tool certainly will help us to collect data and to address the existing differences. And also gender analysis will help us to identify where and what kind of inequities may exist between men and women with regard to legal rights, opportunities for personal development, access to productive resources and political participation. But often, but not always, women always at a disadvantageous position due to various factors and due to the domination of male members based on the existing patriarchal structures. Because of these existing disadvantages, it is not sufficient to provide equal access to services and men and women. First of all, we have to realize that there is a differences. Once you accept these differences only, then we could be able to make necessary changes in the life of the women. So special conditions needs to be created to facilitate the participation of the most of the disadvantaged groups. Thus, we could able to fill the existing gender gaps. To fill the existing gender gaps, certainly gender analysis help us to do to fill the existing gender gaps. For example, as I have mentioned already, there are various sectors. The women, they do contribute, but whatever their contributions, most of the time we may not recognized. So gender analysis as a tool certainly will help us to make these differences and to address the same. Thank you so much for listening this session. In the next session, we will talk about the various methods as part of the gender analysis, as well as we could able to discuss the gender analysis framework. Thank you.